Our 3 years talk is about learnings from real Easy Publish 5 projects, which means real Easy 5 with as little legacy as possible. The presenters are
me, Ekkehard, experienced in Easy Publish since 12 years. 3 years now Easy Publish 5. And making the PHP entrepreneur since 8 years and sometimes speaking here. And Dörre?
I'm the owner of Web Manufacture, a full-service agency in Switzerland, involved with Easy Publish for a couple of years, about 10. And I've been deeply involved last year in consulting with 2 major pure Easy 5 projects and doing different smaller Easy 5 projects on our own. We both are members of the CJW network, which is a compound of 3 smaller companies which founds Easy Publish knowledge community.
Last year we had presented our cookbook. It's still available to help the migration from 4 to 5 and avoiding some pitfalls.
And today you get the ratatouille. I hope it will be edible and you will not have a bad stomach afterwards. The main purpose of this talk is not being a talk, but a discussion. When we prepared the talk, we had not yet known the program of the sessions before, not the marathon yesterday, not what Bertrand told this morning. So there may be some things overlapping, something may be in contradiction, something may be in enforcement of what we have already heard. So we will skip some points, we shorten some points, and we invite you to raise your hand or shout out whenever you have something to contribute. It's the experience that we would like to share, and hopefully it will help us. Here are the 2 links to the last year's presentation. The cookbook is still very much valid. Also, I hope all of you have now learned from it. First, let us ask who is in the audience? Who is from the Symfony, from the Easy world? It's the majority. And who is coming from the Symfony world? Ooh!
Only one?
One.
Don't be shy.
One lonely rider in the dark. Who has realized Easy Publish 5 sites productive with legacy or without legacy? I see how many hands? 3, 4, 5? Okay. And how many pure Easy Publish 5 means no legacy Symfony only sites? Great. I hope you will help us. Things we would like to discuss are good practice. We do not dare to call it best practice. Nobody has this knowledge in Easy Publish so far. Then we would like to discuss about the Easy View cache and the HTTP cache, which are quite different things. Then some aid in debugging, which we learned the hard way. Some pitfalls to avoid, which also we learned the hard way. And finally we would evolve our multi-site setup, which is close to what we have heard from Bertrand this morning, with separate app kernels. We expand the concept to having multiple sites with multiple repositories on the same hardware, on the same installation of Easy Publish. So, for good practice, the one and very first point we have learned is team up with a Symfony crack. As Easy Publish developers, we are completely novice to Easy novices in EC5. Symfony is completely different from the framework we are used to it. So it really helps if you team up with somebody who is knowledgeable in Symfony. And it's easy to find these people nowadays, much easier than easy people. And it's easier for a Symfony crack to learn easy than the other way around. So this is also a word of caution. The Symfony community is waiting for a CMS.
So we as easy partners will soon see new competition from people from the Symfony way. Well, yes, your microphone stopped working.
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah.
Again? Strange. So I will have to watch this red light, obviously. So watch out for new competition from the Symfony world. But also on the other hand, if you're a Symfony crack and want to look at Easy Publish, it's good to have an Easy Publish partner on your side, which helps you in content architecture and helps you avoid many of the pitfalls. The next thing, which was hard to learn for Easy Publish,
People think in MVC, model new code.
bullshit.
Probably needs a new battery.
Eins, zwei.
Okay, think in MVC model view controller. It's completely new thinking for us, radically different from what we have learned. In EC4, everything was mangled together. You had huge templates with all the business logic in it, with fetch functions, with conditionals and everything. The template usually implemented business logic, except for those who made their own modules and put it there. Symfony, on the other hand, enforces a clean separation from routing to the controller to preparation of the output of the data through the view. This nice graph is thanks to Phil, sitting there, our Symfony crack. You see, now I have to change hands. Okay. Sorry. Here. You see the way of a normal request, which is being routed to a controller, which is responsible for taking actions, looking at the request, deciding what to do. The controller can, but does not need to implement business logic. This is kind of a philosophical discussion then. We think that there should be a model which is independent and testable, which should take care of the business logic, and which also has the connection to the database through doctrine, the database. The controller retrieves data from the model, prepares it for rendering, and the view is rendering the result and then producing the output to the browser. This is the MVC black box we are confronted with. The next point we learned is think in bundles. The question what the bundle is has been raised several times this morning, so I would not want to have a discussion here again. Our point was use at least one bundle per site, per project. Split your application in different bundles. If you have site-specific functions and global functional additions, split them into different bundles. Then reuse your code, create a base bundle from which you inherit, create it, maintain it with a big laugh. That's very important. Do not copy paste. Use your code, reuse your code, refactor your code as much as you can. Oh, it's always costly time and money, but at the moment we are confronted with so much changes in the Easy Publish implementations, new possibilities which we can profit from, that it's really good to have such a base bundle and then refactor it. Introducing location search in 5.3 was such a course. It took me very little effort to change the old search service to the new service. And then finally, creating bundles is really easy. Don't work on the demo bundle. Okay, organizing your config files. This is also a point which has been raised this morning. Unfortunately, the demo bundle is not yet really a good source of best practice. All the settings are in this huge Easy Publish YAML file, and Bertrand has shown this morning how to change it, so I go here a bit faster. I agree with him, keep the config in Easy Publish config as general as possible. Restrict the settings there to the environment you are in. Put everything else, which is site-specific, to settings in the folder. Our approach is we import resources. First line here. Import resources from our bundle. I will come to the prepend proposition afterwards. We usually keep the site access settings here with the site access list, the groups, the matches. We keep the repository here. And as you can see, press H. Some points are highlighted here. We standardize on our site access names and site names, which allows us to use parameters for many things, for the site access names, for the var directory, and so on. We also use such naming conventions. For this site, we do not use the custom name /group convention, but we use just default group. This has many advantages. We have quite a few sites which are smaller, have a very similar structure. This allows us to have the same configuration for all sites. This is the continuation of what we keep in Easy Publish in the Easy Publish directory. And it can even be shorter. Look at the good example of Jérôme in Metal France. As extras, use parameters, which makes it easier, like we have the site name as parameters here. I always get the wrong. Yeah, it's from the parameter file. This is the site name, and standardize the naming. And out on prepending. Last year, we voted for prepending configuration in the dependency injection container. We have dropped this, as our Symfony cracks have told us that they have problems with parameters. So the current state is, I'm not quite sure if this is still true, or if the solution that Bertrand presented this morning, which is quite elegant, which allows a bundle to retrieve on its own the settings, is really a valid approach for all circumstances. Any?
Well, what I tried the doctrine, I prepared the doctrine settings with persons parameters, and it works. So nothing showed that it would not work, but I might have missed something, of course.
Yeah, or we. So it's worth trying. Prepending is a nice concept, absolutely. This one is certainly robust. So, if you have the solution, host it and share it. Easy enough. Then again, config files being moved to the bundle. I'm a bit different here, a bit retro. We keep a separate folder for the easy publish settings, and we keep separate files which we name after the good old ini files. So we will not have template rules file, we have an override file. And we have an image YAML instead of image variations YAML. But it's up to your taste. Then you raised what is a bundle, what goes to controllers. I think this is a learning everybody has to make. After several tries, we ended up with basically one controller per full view. So this is the concept, actually quite easy, a whole easy concept. Instead of the big full view template, we have now a big controller, or hopefully not so big controller. Of course, we have separate controls for navigation and other stuff. And on this controller level, we can consider caching, caching times, caching strategies, etc. Yeah, I have two points with controllers. Symfony says all business logic in controllers. The MVC paradigm has this N for model. So we would recommend to move business logic to the model and keep the control as small as possible. So, but this is really a thing I would like to discuss with you. What is your experience? How do you model your controllers? How do you model your models if you have? Any feedback? Yeah?
I think the advantage of bringing it to the model is that the model can be tested independently. So all your business logic can be unit tested and not only tested within the whole structure. I don't know, this is my, I want to test the business logic, and if that is possible in that way, I recommend the model. I don't know.
Yep. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Other success? Yeah.
Great.
So what we ended up with doing is, as Bertrand and Jérôme suggested, is to have services, basically, and they may be considered as models in some VC logic. But if it's pure database abstraction and you are using entities, let's say for the Symfony stack stuff and not easy publish related stuff, so this is not purely an easy publish solution, is to have your entities and talk to entities which have repositories. So if it's pure database abstraction logic that you need to achieve, then use it in the repositories. But to fetch the data itself, it can be as easy as having services or as easy publish convention says repositories. So you can simply add in your bundle repository and which says product repository, user repository, or content repository, or depending on your type of objects.
Yeah.
So that's what we ended up using is for easy publish related logic. We created repositories that would receive the repository, is published repository, and then use all the logic in there. So as with the beer stuff we looked at yesterday, is get the location service, get the content service, and then just for each cycle and get the first review. That would have been in a repository.
Yeah.
And then that could be called from the controllers.
Thank you. So in any way you are moving out things of the controller to separate services. Thank you.
Anybody?
Okay. Well, of course controllers finally have to retrieve all needed data through the model or directly and prepare the data for easy processing in the templates. We usually prepare the data in a way so that the template remains as simple as possible. Then ways to fetch content. This is a heavy one because it's quite different from what we were used to. First we have two easy things: a location service, which has the load location method, one ID, one location object as a result. The same for the content service, one content object. Then we have two services which return lists of objects. We have the find content service, which returns a list of content objects, and we have the find location service, which returns a list of locations. The find locations service is new to 5.3, it was not available before. And finally, so on the sideline we have from this location service, we have the load location children, which is a very simple way of fetching children of location. And of course we would have legacy fetch functions which we could use using a Trojan. Let me cover the search service find content first. It's still the only one that you will find in demo bundle, so everybody considers this as best practice or state of the art. But unfortunately this the find content method returns full content objects with all attributes in all languages. This is quite a difference to what we know. Well, it has a problem with multiple locations. It always returns the main location ID of the object, not knowing its actual location in the tree. And as opposed to EC4, it has no as objects flag. So it always returns the whole object, which can be quite inefficient. And as we had to find out, it scales very badly. The first sites, which were smaller customer sites, there is no problem at all with using search service. We found out with the bigger sites, until we cover this in detail, and then talk afterwards, it scales very badly. Giving you an example, fetching a content tree with 160 locations, big footer menu, it took 30 seconds. And when analyzing, most of the time is spent in manipulating the SQL result in PHP. The SQL query itself is in the range of milliseconds, no problem, but then is a big array return which is massaged and converted and again massaged in PHP. And to give you a figure, in another test with only 24 hits, this array had 44,880 rows with 39 elements each, highly redundant, and this then was boiled down to 24 results. In another instance on the front page, one function in there was iterated over 2 million times. So you can imagine the time it takes. This led me to a blog post which was produced in July and well commented by André. Thank you. And finally, or gladly, we have an alternative since 5.3. We have the find locations method in search service, which is roughly the equivalent to our good old content fetch. It works on the content tree table, which knows how our content is structured. It returns location objects with content info only, so small objects, usually sufficient for building a menu. If you need more, load content. The performance is lower than legacy, but I would say it's acceptable. This content tree fetch with 116 locations took below 1 second. So this is a huge performance booster. And it scales very well. Regardless whether you have 160 locations or 160,000 locations, it doesn't really make a big difference. Finally, there's this load location children in the location service. This is mainly used for the admin interface. It doesn't have any filtering capabilities. And at that point, I would recommend reading a blog post by Ekkehard from Ekkehard, who is involved in the search service, which is very useful for understanding the search service. Any questions or comments so far? Are we the only one who had performance problems so far? Oh no!
Wait. Please wait.
I think I already talked enough. Sorry, sorry for this from everyone. We had 52 locales, so we exactly did the. I mean 52 site accesses, as you call it. I was not familiar with the term before Easy Publish, so I'm just using them as locales. So I always call them as locales.
So it had been another project.
So we also did these calculations as you did. That we have 52 locales. We have 8,000 products in there. So we also did the math, and we all experienced the massages, as we called it, and PHP decorating all the objects so that it returns the one single locale that we actually needed to begin with. But as you pointed out, this 5.3 changes. We're actually not using the search service load locations, but we're using the location service itself, which also results in content info, if I'm not mistaken, only. So it does not return the full object, but then it also boosted our performance immensely. So, but the initial performance with 52 site accesses was a completely heavy on database. So our server administrators were calling me constantly that it's just the servers are not going to take it.
Really?
And it was just not the PHP part, but they also we have a dedicated database server that only stores the database itself, and that was simply not able to handle it.
Yeah.
And also what we're also experiencing is the immense memory consumption that is still present. So currently, each and every Apache process takes up to 800 megabytes, and we still need to allocate 3 gigabytes, so it does not stop working.
Yeah.
So currently we are only able to serve about 60, 70 clients parallel. So we had to limit down our max clients in the server in PHP as well, because otherwise at some points when tons of people hit the back end, it would just simply start swapping and then it would just die. So
yeah, thank you. Any other experiences? Tim?
Did you?
For the camera.
Did you use fast CGI in the Apache, or is it a module regarding memory consumption? Do you know that?
There is a fast CGI, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's still has, sometimes 1.2, 1.3 gigabytes, but mostly it never stops below 700 megabytes each memory process.
Okay. Okay.
Was there anybody else? I saw some.
Or was anybody resolving to this solution? Your turn?
My turn? Oh.
Oh, legacy. Legacy is your turn.
Thank you. Thank you. If the performance is bad, there's one solution to go to legacy. And it's still working, and then all the requests are fast. But that's not a real solution, but it can help you with big problems. We had, after this,
Last exit before help.
yeah.
But it's actually it's very well done. It's no problem at all to use it. You just use a closure function where you call the function handlers, be it easy find, be it content search, be it content fetch. Any of these functions work. You pass parameters, and there you go.
One very ugly way, when it's really in danger, you can include an old TKO file, for example with your footer and a fetch into a twig and so on, and so that you can manage a launch, but then you have to repair it later. It's possible, it's working very well, but it's far away from clean. Yes. Okay.
Templates is another question. When first starting with twig templates, controllers and so on, the big question was how to move a simple full view template, let's say a folder, children list, how to move this to Symfony. In Easy4 it's easy. You have ways to output data. You have this fetch function, which retrieves children. You iterate over the children by using their own line view. You're set. Astonishingly, it was not that easy in Twig. First, that was from 5.1, I think, on, it was possible to use sub-requests. So sub-requests, of course, are a good possibility. Instead of our fetch function and looping over that children, we just use a sub-request. Okay, so far so good. The sub-request has its own controller, which is here. It's not that difficult. I have my own function for fetching location list, including content types. So then, retrieve the children, bang. Oh, I need a template to output them. Yes, I need another template. So we have already 3 parts. And then, what looks this template again to have the same functionality as in Easy4? I must use another sub-request, which then could take care of my template rule. So, and finally, from here then results any line templates. So, this is one of the reasons why we thought it was better to move more stuff to the controller and prepare the data for the parent and the children directly to the controller to feed it into one template. It's an approach that is not always good, but for many questions it's a very viable approach. Discuss. Yeah. How have you solved this problem?
did you already solve it?
Yes, we had solutions for this, but
I'm sorry again. So we considered recursive renders, recursive sub-requests as a terrible practice because on performance as well as on scalability and performance and everything. Especially that each sub-request you must consider that the current request object is being pushed to the sub-request as well. So that's causing overhead, very hard to debug. So we basically moved everything from sub-request to the way it's supposed to be done. Controllers fetch the items and retrieve it and push it to the twig, to the view. So by changing this and using recursive renders, it is just a horrible practice on performance. So what we basically do is we have repositories fetching the data and then we push it into the twig as it was imagined and dreamed by Symfony developers. This sub-request approach is still a nice one and flexible, but I would be cautious and I would strongly advise people to rethink if they really need to use this. I mean it's nice, and I've heard some good examples. Maybe on the first day that it's very easy that just add these render controllers and then just distribute the tasks to the other developers, saying that this controller action is your responsibility and then the other one is the other person's. But in general, I would go with the approach that Symfony was meant to be: is controls fetch the items, push it to the view, and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody? Okay.
Then there was also the question how to organize templates. We ended up in two ways. The Symfony way would be Symfony recommends structuring the templates in parallel to the controller structure. So the first approach would be the Symfony approach. We have a custom controller, we have a folder, and then we have in there customer detail and so templates and so on. And the lower approach is the classic easy way. We have a full view, we have a line view, and we have our templates in there. It's really a matter of taste. So, I do not yet ask you again how you do it. There's another guy who actually did project it. Okay. There is one hot topic, which is caching.
Yeah.
First, we must understand the view caching in EC4. In EC4, the module result. Yes. Okay. Yeah. The module result is being cached in the var. The var folder, var cache folder. And whenever a new version of an object is published, this cache piece is being purged, and through magic all related objects and so on. Quite a smart thing. It also has a smart cache, smart view cache settings. This is a system which works very well. That's the easy way. The HTTP cache from Symfony, and this is from the Symfony documentation. There you can learn much more about it. Says that there are two caching models: the expiration model, where cache has a certain time to live, and when time to live is finished, the cache is considered stale, no more valid. Or it has the validation model, where there you provide means to answer the question, is the answer to a request still valid, or do I have to provide a new one? To make it very short and sum up, the EasyView cache caches content and fragments with a standard TTL of 2 hours and being purged. And the HTTP cache from Symfony caches full requests or partial requests. There are sub-request fragments. Easy uses the expiration model by default with a standard TTL of 60 seconds, tree menu being a special case. And the Symfony cache is being purged from backend, which is true for the local HTTP cache, which needs some configuration when you go with Varnish or another request proxy. But let's dive in a bit deeper. In EC4, a header is constructed with especially this cache control header. The expiry date in the past and this cache control, no cache must revalidate, which means that no browser, no cache no proxy is allowed to cache this resource, and every request comes back to the easy server, which then answers it by sending out the cache file or creating it new. This is still in the newest kernel of Easy, in the Easy legacy part. On the other hand, if you have best practice in demo bundle, the response is set public. It's given a high shared max age. And this means, this is one full day, this means that as soon as this response is given out to the world, no of the browsers, none of the proxies in between needs to ask the server again whether this request is valid. This means you set this response free, you have no more control of it. I think this is, for a content management system, this is not acceptable. Do you really understand the implication of what I've said, or I'm completely wrong? No contradiction? No?
Can you explain what you mean? Because it seems valid to me.
What it means? It sets the response to public, which means any proxy can store it. And
well, I'm not sure what it means. Can you explain what you mean by it's not being valid? But why is this approach not valid?
I say it's not acceptable because in a content management system, when the editor changes content,
actually, I might be wrong, but shared max age is not max age. Max age applies to clients, while shared max age applies to reverse proxies, meaning that as far as Varnish, for instance, or the Symfony reverse proxy is concerned, by default, the content is valid for 24 hours. But if it expires, it will get cleared, meaning it won't be valid anymore. If this was sent as a public max age, yes, it wouldn't be acceptable. But since we can clear what the proxy has, we can obviously not clear what the browsers have. But we can clear what the proxy has. In this case, it works.
Yeah, but maybe I'm wrong, but the shared max age is for the proxies outside of Varnish.
As far as I know...
As long as we have it under control in Varnish, I see no problem.
Yes, but you have control over the CDN. You can expire on the CDN, right? As long as you can purge on this proxy, it's fine.
Yeah.
As I see it, it should not apply to like company proxies and stuff. It's only for ours, but I'm not the expert on that part.
That's what shared does. That's what shared does.
Yes.
If you have a company proxy, it would ignore a regular max age. as the varnish you have under control is a single point of truth. But when you have the shared, everyone is a single point of truth, and you don't have a connection from the, purging from the CMS to all the other proxies. So you leave it into wild, and you leave it up to the company proxies to keep it, even if it expires, not by TTL, but by purge. With that approach, you don't have control over purging your content. And as you usually have various proxies, like on mobile and everywhere, it is a very limited control over your content in general. That's how far I understand this configuration.
Anyway, if you would use the shared max age, I would suggest that you use really low TTL. But maybe there are other solutions. There is one hack. I can't call it other than hack. If you use the local HTTP cache.
I have an addition.
Yes.
Because I didn't work on that part, but I think Jerome,
unfortunately, is not here.
So actually, what should be done is, if you use varnish, it gets the max age, instructing varnish how long the cache is valid, and then when varnish sends it to the outside world, it removes the max age. In which case, it is acceptable because company proxies won't see it, and that's like the first result when googling for shared max age varnish. It's in the best practices. The sensible approach is to use the smax age variable to instruct varnish to cache, then have varnish remove that variable before sending it to clients using rex or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Good. You will have varnish.
I have varnish on mine.
We can inspect the headers.
I don't know how this is in the. I don't know how this is in the default configuration. I'm still using in my talk only the default configuration on varnish. It is, you might remove it while handling it over to the wild. But you have to remove it. If it's not a shared max age, you wouldn't have to remove it as it is only on the one for the first proxy. And I think at that point, if you might go one slide backwards, I think what is important here is to define how it's intended to work and how it's intended to, what functionality is intended at this point. So this is what we ask ourselves when we saw this. So how is it intended? Maybe it's only the share that is not needed or whatever.
The share is needed for varnish and the way.
But shared means proxy, so it will not be cached by the client. But in this case, if varnish doesn't strip it, it might be cached by other proxies.
Yeah.
So that is a problem. So
it should be stripped if we didn't document it.
Yeah, so it might be that we need to update the full VCL here.
But I quite distinctly remember having this conversation and saying, hey, this is not acceptable. And then Jerome explaining to me that it was intended to be removed.
Oh, okay.
Because
Okay, but
it's like a programming varnish, basically.
But certainly the local HTTP cache does not remove it.
That remains to be checked. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's why we have this dirty patch.
What
This removes it.
What I then would suggest is to make clear what intention is behind that. So having it commented maybe in some way in that area, because I think the logical intention behind that is the most important thing at that.
You're right.
No matter where it's handled. Or, yeah.
This header might be adequate for a given situation. That's beyond question, but not as a default behavior. And therefore, I'm not very happy about seeing it in the demo model. So, if we want to change it, we have this dirty hack. And the recommendations we would say here first read the spec so that we can discuss on a solid basis. use shared caches with caution. And also when using the setTTL method on the response, be aware that setTTL sets the shared TTL, shared max age, and not the max age. If you have a purging mechanism, set TTL as high as possible, possibly to indefinite, but only if you can rely on your purge mechanism. And use varnish, we have heard it many times, so just use it. Till will show how easy it can be. And here are two links to the specs and very good posts about caching. Any further remarks here from your side? Questions? Okay, there's one special case which Ekkehard will cover.
Yes, if you have a restricted area, Easy Publish per default has xvary on user group, which is useful to cache per user, maybe not useful, but sometimes it's needed. And this is just a way to make it very easy user hash, to define a user hash definer. And very shortly you can look inside the slides and there's a blog post or a forum post about it. And you see this identity here. And the user ID is fetched. I take the old world. And you activate it and set a special header so that when it's sent out, the header is set private. Okay, it's a private section, and it's not per user group as default, it's set per user, and then the cache is made per user. Sometimes it makes sense, normally it makes not sense to cache per user, but here's a solution. In this case it wasn't needed. Yep. Just short, because we have some more nicer things.
Yeah, a collection of learnings from debugging, sweating, swearing. Yeah. When you encounter a blank screen or a 503, these are possible ways to check it. Usually it's a PHP error or a configuration error. Switch to dev mode, check the log files, and also check the permissions on the log files. If you won't find any log files, you might not have the permission to write it. For the novices, the permission problem on the files and directory is one of the biggest problems in the Symfony world. Then you get this famous twig bundle 500, error 500, which is usually not a big error, but indicates that twig doesn't find a template to render that error message. So the twig is very good at displaying error messages that are really twig related. And this one is a system error which does not have an adequate template to render. Then we have this famous invalid variation on images, which causes headaches, which can be caused by intermittent problems in the kernel, I guess, still. Usually the file does not exist, or the permissions are wrong. Again, check log files, clear caches. The comment? No. And although this is a classic one, form token not found, regenerate auto-loops in the legacy. Hopeful. I hope this helps. Two heavy pitfalls. The memory limit. when I raised the memory limit to 2 gigs, I thought it can't be true. And then we found the culprit in the dev mode, stash logging, complex data structures really eats all the memory. It's one of them. You may see the other one. By disabling the logging, the whole thing needs much less memory. It's much faster in the dev mode. And the other one, request queue too long. You have certainly encountered that sub requests and 50% accesses. Yeah. Well, it's fixed now. The cause was that in sub request the whole site access configuration was appended to the URI, reaching over there and there. Most servers have a limit of 8 kilobytes, and then it crashes. So it's fixed in these versions. Was a nice fix by Sharon. I learned a lot about it. Okay. That were 2 pitfalls. What we have now? First, any more pitfalls on your hand, or from your side? Things you would like to share to help others avoid such problems? Each of this slide cost at least some hours of work before writing the slide.
It's very close from what you said, but don't run long scripts in dev. Don't run long-running scripts in dev mode because of logging and everything. Use prod always, like for imports, because otherwise it will use all your memory and die.
Yeah,
that's the first thing to do.
But when developing, you like to have the dev mode.
Maybe we need to rename it to debug, so it's more clear.
Maybe, or distinguish dev from core development from stuff we can create many. But the logging is what we must say in memory logging. Is the one that will give you the reading box. Every manipulated CPI data will stay until the other request will last for 3 days.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping to see the EZP generate autoloads, but it was there. So
yeah.
So that was one of our first pitfalls, definitely. What I also had is somehow the easy ini, which I don't know too much about because I was never a legacy user or a legacy developer. That it somehow merges all your overrides and stuff, and in cases it was missing some of the extensions that we needed to use. So somehow, I don't know, after a couple of days that this ini cache expired, then it simply did not contain the extensions that we needed. So I instead of using the best practice of using overrides, site ini override, I had to append all the extensions that we needed, and then it took me maybe 2 weeks to actually realize what's going on there. After 1 day, the site crashes and stuff, and then of course after cache purge, it was working again. So I ended up checking each and every cache file. So first it didn't work. So I made a copy of the cache folder, the ini cache folder, and then I ran the cache purge, and then it worked. So I ended up checking each and every hashed cache file. So what's the difference? Which one is causing the difference? And then I found the site ini one that was making, and then I pasted it into my editor and looking what's missing, and some of the extensions were missing from there. But still, I was not able to grasp this thoroughly, so I couldn't actually file a support request to examine this because I couldn't really understand what's going on. So that was another pitfall. The ESI fragments, of course, we ran into that, but I realized at an early stage that I don't need the site access. I mean, the whole part of the site access, serialized site access in the ESI fragment URL. So I added my own listener which does this URL fragment stuff. So we actually didn't run into problems because it just looked crazy to me immediately. So yeah, so we didn't have that one. Yeah, the stash stuff. Again, I can strongly recommend people using memcached as a handler for stash. It immensely speeds up the process, and even in development mode, it's reliable. Even for sessions, actually, we ended up using memcached in our local environments as well as in production mode. So that was something. The more storage folder permissions are still a mystery to me at some point, and at some time they become unwritable for no reason. So that's something that is yet to be handled. But definitely, the folder permissions are one of the pitfalls.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Something I was told by a community member last week. Actually, there is no, I think, logging parameter for stash. It's called tracking. It's even wrong in our file. I just checked online. Okay. If you dump the reference for stash, it's tracking.
That's on Russian.
Well, in version 0.12, which is the one we use, right?
Yeah, as of a couple months ago, yeah.
And I just dumped the config reference in EasyPublish anyway. It is tracking, so, but it will automatically be disabled in prod and enabled in dev. So, yeah.
Okay, then one last thing. We have 25 minutes for our multi-site, multi-repository setup, which is one of our favorite topics. Would you start with...
Okay. Yes, we at CGW had a very long time multi-site setup in the old EZ4.
Sorry, the mic is dead.
Better? Yep. Okay. In old EZ4 we had a multi-site setup with hundreds of customers inside, so we could improve the servers, and it was working very well. And there was for smaller and bigger customers, and there was a wish to have this again. And there was one approach developed with Symfony developers from Sensio Labs. I'll show soon. And now we develop a second one. So that's a cliffhanger. The advantage is central site administration, easy deployment, and security patches updates, because you can automate it very perfectly, and your servers can be optimized for easy publish, and everything is very nice, and yeah, it's nice.
I must maybe make a clear point. We have one single easy installation, and with many site extensions in it, many sites running on the same installation, not many easy publish installations on the same server. The advantage comes from this, that we have just one easy installation to maintain.
Yep. And if one customer is getting bigger, so that need more resources, we can just put it out in a new installation on a new server, because it's all automated, and then we have two easy publish installations and so on for different servers, but normally one is enough for a lot of traffic. Yeah, the first approach, it's the old one. It's now proven since 1.5 years. I go inside very short, because we had this in these days. It's with different easy publish app directories. So it's better. Yeah. That's the pure Symfony way, which is really, really nice, because it's encapsulated perfectly, but you can reuse a lot, and so it's nice. I just go a little bit in the directory structure, very fast, because there's some things about. Fantastic. This is old, legacy, you see, and each customer has its own site extension with everything inside. So the override and all the ini files are very small, and everything needed for the customer is here. And so in former days, you just copied this, the var directory, which is the naming convention, and the database to a different server in the same setup, and then it was running. Nowadays, we have this bundle thing, and we have here the bundles in source with the same naming convention, but in camel case, the more simple way. And we have the app, or the app here. And in normally you can use the Easy Publish app and then just include the YAML files here in this site_customer app, or you just copy it. It depends on. And you see the advantage. The naming is very clear, so it's very easy to go inside. The disadvantage is there are very, very many folders writable, and it's a mess if you have not pure Symfony set up, if you have some legacy templates inside, where to find it. And new people to Easy Publish are lost, absolutely, and even old ones. And just do the inner settings very fast. It is nearly the same as presented before. You can look in the slides later. And the same here. And yeah, and it's an app. And so it's just not PHP Easy Publish consoler, it's set customer. Yeah. And so it's encapsulated, it's very nice. Just put it in here to see everything. Yeah. Here are the advantages. And no.
Yeah, I have my own electro, I think.
Go backward. Look at the advantage.
Examples, yeah, but I can share it later.
Yeah, if you have some time left.
Yep. Okay.
Huh? It's a browser.
No, it's a browser, it's fancy. Should I show? There were many portals developed there. That's no internet. Yeah. It's a TV agency in Germany, and the site access has the naming convention. As seen, it's a brainpool user, brainpool admin, and then _de for the German ones. And the next one is totally different, and in the development it's on the same server. In real life then it's two servers. It's not inside. Yep. And it's different site access. In this case, it's the same server, and it's totally different. Just to have a short expression. Yep. Any deeper, you can ask me directly, or yep, like this. Okay. Back to the slides. Yeah, back to reality.
Okay. Well, this approach has worked for 1.5 years, and so it's very close to the original Symfony setup, so it's robust, but it has some disadvantages. The biggest problem for us is that the application code is scattered at 2 to 3 places. We have sometimes the old legacy extension. We have then in source a bundle, or 2 or 3, and finally we have this app folder. So we have 3 locations which we must maintain, and this is hard to maintain in the version control system.
and also hard to deploy. Our deployment is kind of retro. We prepare a local installation with compose and everything. We check in everything into Subversion, and we deploy from Subversion to the server directly. It's very robust. Yeah. And we have the situation we have on our local test machine, we have on the server. The second disadvantage is that we have redundancy in config files. In any of the site apps folders are the same config files with many times the same settings. We have no global settings. We have no central site activation or administration. In our old system, it was sufficient to add site extension in site ini override, override site ini, and then the site extension was activated, the site was active. And what else? Yeah, we wanted to change it, keep everything in one place. And the natural approach is that we create a bundle. And of course, everything has to go into this bundle. So this multi-site bundle boots different site-specific kernels based on domain name mappings. We also have the problem that we have different domain name mappings for development and productive systems. The mapping in Easy Publish YAML is not very friendly to that. We want to change this. Yes, at this point. It shall allow for global activation of bundles, site bundles. Shall allow for global settings, and also provide a common console for all sites. And caches, domain name mappings, and so on. And at that point, we move away the cache files into the var folder. And if you like, we can even move the var folders and the cache files in the var folders somewhere different. Because on this server setup, the cache folder and the log files are on other drives.
Let's do it right. Var site name cache.
Yeah. Okay. And we have some more ideas. The current state is it's not yet production ready, but this is the setup. We have next to Easy Publish, we have a CJW Publish folder, of course. Some branding must be, and which has a small config directory with currently just 2 YAML files. The first defines the active bundles, which is the equivalent to the one inside init. And then we have a config YAML for global settings like database server and so on and so on. Then we have here our own kernel, which inherits from the multi-site kernel, and we have the console. The console is modified so that she takes the first parameter for the site, and if this parameter is not there, it creates a symlink for. Then we have a console dash site name command. In the bundle, we have an app directory with all the standard config files and the kernel, which inherits from the publish kernel from the CJW publish directory. Here we have domain name mappings defined, so that we can map different domains according to our scheme to the site accesses. No, that's wrong. We map it to this kernel. And of course it does not run as smoothly as the first approach, because in the first approach, the kernel was just 1 level deep buried, and now it's 4 levels deep buried in the file system. And not all settings are that safely crafted that it doesn't bring any problems. We have different settings we have to adjust in config YAML. The root here, for instance, is at a different place. Ascetic needs settings to make it work. And also parameters here, easy publish kernel root here parameter needs to be adjusted. Yeah.
We should discuss.
Certainly. Certainly. And there is also another problem. In the INI files, it was easy to empty an array of settings.
Yeah, we talked about it with Jerome yesterday again last week. The best way, I think, is to, that's why in my example I had this file system array parameters and this, I basically set the array in parameters YAML.
Yeah.
That way you can just replace it, because yes, you can't empty it.
Yeah.
So that's annoying.
That's annoying, yes. And
I don't think there is a workaround now.
currently we have a dirty hack for XML processing right now, but I think it should be different. Yes, please?
Can you also show us what's your document routes for the specific different codes? Do they share
the document route is shared.
It's shared.
It's in the web folder as standard.
So there's no conflict with the assets?
No, because the assets are going in the bundles.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
No, it works remarkably well, but it's not yet really production ready. We expect more problems of this kind, and it's not yet, from the code quality, it's not yet so well documented so that we would like to publish it. But of course, we would like to invite you to think about it with us and contribute, share your ideas. For us, it's clear this will be public domain, GPL license, and we would invite everybody to, yes, still.
How much of the configuration that is done has to be done due to legacy? So without legacy, how would this bundle look? Would it be easier not to have 3 elements to be hooked? All that. So
well, without legacy, the legacy extension is not necessary.
Would that be the only one?
But currently, this is not absolutely true, I think, because of the backend. You still need some backend side access settings in the legacy. So currently, you have these 3 parts. Also when the application is pure Symfony.
Or maybe that might be shared if there's nothing changed as well.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Basically.
Did you try using a legacy bundle for this?
What?
The legacy bundles, did you try them to do this? Having your legacy extension in the bundle?
Not yet.
Because it doesn't work for everything, like very low level settings won't work, but most would, so it would simplify it a lot.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't work for check validity, but this one is like very low level.
Yeah. Then we will certainly do this. I'm now in the process of moving all sites to this new setup. Some of them pure legacy, with the document route in legacy as a first step, and others at least with a separate new page layout. Okay. More questions or suggestions?
Why don't use environment variable to define the bundle for each site?
We provide this as a possibility, as an alternative, but for us it's usually, as we have a strong naming scheme, we can always go from the domain name, we can directly map to the recording site, corresponding site. But we would provide the environment variable as a second approach. Other questions? If no, we close this section on time. These are the resources. We have 2 GitHub repositories where you find 2 bundles. They are both quite empty. You find the slides in the summer camp bundle, which doesn't have any useful resources besides the slides. And we have the multi-site bundle set up, which is currently empty, but we will soon commit the first alpha version to it. And then we would be very glad if you would share and contribute. One last. Oh, it's very, very well visible. Please vote. And
before this,
thanks.
For this, since we have 2 or 3 minutes, the CGW newsletter is working on 5 as a legacy. And we will put it on GitHub in some weeks. With only a few adjustments, and so you can still use it for legacy. But very nice. Okay.
Well, we plan for migrating the data type. There's one data type in the newsletter which connects users to newsletter users, and we migrate this data type, so you will be able to work with that. Okay. Thank you very much.